Good afternoon and welcome to the Geneva Internet Platform. My name is Jovan. I'm director of the Geneva Internet Platform, and I'm really pleased to welcome you all to our session on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Our remote participants, they don't need mobile with regards to remote participants somewhere in the world. We have today a great panel which will discuss the system. One of the rare occasions where one can learn a lot from about a completely new issue. I spent almost 4 weeks at the World Forum, the meeting on the World Summit on Information Society, discussing the politics of internet governance and the very usual sessions about improvement, exclusion, digital divide, and this and that, and and then this is coming with real reflection, something completely new. I know vaguely from a few articles in newspapers that you're talking here with us extremely competent panel, and I will introduce from the left-hand side Mathieu Buffenoir, Alexis there from the Bitcoin Association, and this guy will tell us what it is all about. I just asked them before the session when I was buying my first 10 cents in Bitcoin. If it is illegal, they confirmed that it's not illegal. That's what is the question. And I asked them what it is about. They started explaining, and they said, "Okay, Alex, that you are good in explaining." We can call it easier through explanation for the complete newcomers, and this is what we have been doing for months. We have real experts on explaining what it is all about. On the right hand side, we are really fortunate to have with us Chiara from Gulten. Is it correct pronunciation? My presentation was about gluten because these days we are trying to change our diet at our home, and that's great to have you. Chiara, you're coming from a foundation which name is
a think tank.
Gene Group. Gene Group, if I'm correct, this is what they are in fact, but you can explain us, give us more details. We're trying to provide some sort of thinking out of the box for businesses, NGOs, and other communities. And Bitcoin is a part of that portfolio. Mm-hmm. And we have with us William Taborda from UNCTAD, who's bringing a really unique perspective of development aspects of the Bitcoin. Now, I thought it was just novelty, innovation, and excitement of a few guys, but then what William has been trying to do is to connect it to development activities.
That's what I would like to do, but
goes slow, huh?
Oh yeah, but it's okay. It should go slow, actually.
Okay. You have to give us the advice how to push it from outside, and
absolutely.
We have a bit after we spent the diplomatic negotiations. Okay. We have some expertise. Okay, that's fine. I think that's basically setting the stage for the session, and we'll start with Mathieu and Alex.
Yeah, please go. Can I have the laptop?
Sure. Now I don't know how we are going to operate this. I will go and watch the presentation from the audience if you like. We can be moving.
I'm not sure to know.
Yeah, William, if you're more comfortable with the presentation, you don't have this question.
Awesome. Test. How do you start that? So hi everybody, I'm here with Alexis, and we're going to try to explain you what the Bitcoin protocol is. So let's discover Bitcoin together and the other cryptocurrencies. So Bitcoin, like I just said, is a protocol and we've heard about many protocols around us in the internet. But what is new about Bitcoin? Bitcoin is the first protocol that helps to set up a network to transfer value and not only information. We're used to internet to transfer information, but as everybody knows, information can be copied and sent as many times as we want. But with Bitcoins, now information can be unique and it can get values. So the funny thing is, I'm telling you about the protocol, but you all heard that Bitcoin is a money. It's simply because the unit transferred over the Bitcoin network has been called a Bitcoin by lack of inspiration, I would say. But there are many other cryptocurrencies and they all have a different name. So you might want to ask, who owns the Bitcoin network? So the answer is simple, it's no one. Because the Bitcoin protocol is an open source project, so a lot of people all around the world work on it. It's a bit like internet. It has the same foundation of open source and university people and hackers interested into it. And also, it's simply one layer on top of token on a peer-to-peer network. This token is the currency that has value. And all those transactions are written on a public and distributed ledger. It's like a big book where all the transactions are written in, and then this book is shared between all the participants of the network. So if someone needs to modify something in the books, then it will be modified everywhere. So everyone has the same copy. This is the important part in Bitcoin. And this big book is called the blockchain. So that's something you might have heard a lot when you speak about Bitcoin. So, to access the network, you use a wallet software. And the wallet software, it's like your wallet in current life, but it's a digital wallet. And in this wallet, you have two keys. One key is your public address. It's a bit like your IBAN account number, you know. If you give it to someone, they can send you money, and that's fine. Most of the time, you're happy if someone sends you money. And you also have another key, which works with this one. It's the private key. And this private key is a bit like your credential to access your bank account online. And with this, you can access your fund and transfer the property of Bitcoin to someone else. So this is something that needs to stay secret. That's why I put it in red, because it's very important. Like, don't give your private key to the first one coming, or have a secure computer where your private key is not going to be stolen. Or don't let your phone on the table of the restaurant with a private key in and 10 Bitcoins in it, because that would be a bit stupid. So keys are big strings of characters, and it's very long, as you can see. So to simplify the process, we use QR code to encode those keys, and so then you can just flash them with your phone, you know, like you might have seen lots of QR code around. Often it's to get access to an internet URL, but you can also access to the public key of someone and send funds to this. You just need to scan it with your wallet on your phone or iPhone, and you can send money to this. So you might want to ask, okay, but who creates the Bitcoin? So on this big network, where everybody has the book with the transactions, some people participate in a different way than the other. They verify the transaction. They verify that when someone says, I'm sending money to Alexis, he really has the money in his account. So those people, for doing this verification work, they get a reward. And this reward is made in Bitcoin. So there will be, in 2140, 21 million Bitcoins that will be created. So this value has been encoded in the protocol since the first day. So it's been decided at the start, and that is going to be the maximum of Bitcoins that will ever be available. Well, if you if you copy Bitcoins, like it's open source, anyone can make another cryptocurrency. You can change its value and you can change some other parameters. So you could say you make Bitcoins number 2 and you have 42 million Bitcoins. But you just need to find people that want to use it. So how to get them? I will let you explain how to get some Bitcoin.
So I'm taking over this. So first we're going to see quickly how we are going to get them, and then we will go more on more open topics that we are, or open challenges that we will see. So how to get them? That's when you first install a wallet, when you connect to the network, which is actually accessible to everyone. Well, you have 0, so you have to find a way to get them and be able to start to use them. So the first way to do is actually to say, okay, I'm providing a service and I'm going to be paid in Bitcoin, and promotes that. And this is very linked to the digital economy and the Bitcoin, how by its simplicity, by just showing one string of character or one QR code, can be integrated into all the applications that we have online, and is very quite fit to these to the online economy. Also, one extremely important aspect of this online economy is that it allows microtransactions to be made, where you can do very, very tiny transactions with a very tiny fee, as if you start with using traditional currencies payment system. You will have a threshold of 50 cents one row per transaction, which is very difficult to integrate into this micropayments. So selling is one way, and then trying to find and to buy them from someone who wants to sell them. So there are exchange platforms, there are broker platforms. This is one of the key legal developments which are happening right now. What is the status of those platforms? This is what is booming right now. And so you will have more and more actors in your country where you will be able to buy legally or in a legal framework your Bitcoins and also sell them. And of course, the last part is providing infrastructure to verify the Bitcoin transaction. As Mathieu said, miners are providing this CPU power, this computing power, and are rewarded in Bitcoins for helping auditing the whole Bitcoin system. It's a very tricky business. It's very special in terms of how much power you need to put there, and with your own simple computer you cannot achieve something which brings enough money right now anymore. So it's a very specific job. So what is important? So we said Bitcoin is just a token that you are sending over a secure network. And you are changing the property of this token. So very quickly at the beginning, people said, well, okay, now we have the proof of concept that we can send a token and we can exchange the property of this token. Maybe we can send something more than just a token, because token is not very interesting. And so that's why we started to develop things like sending a message, sending another string, which means something, or for example, a domain name. So some people have developed another cryptocurrency called Namecoin, which is trying to kind of overrule the problems of the internet governance right now, where we have the DNS, which is one of the key elements. Where we say, okay, we have a public ledger, which is the blockchain. Why don't we just put all the domain names into there and have people in a peer-to-peer network send the domain name with cryptocurrency to connect this name to an IP address in the blockchain, and then we have a system which is decentralized, distributed, where you don't have a register, and it's much more resilient than the actual DNS domain name system. So so this is one of the things that might influence in the future the governance, the internet governance issues. So then you can also say, okay, we are going to link these tokens to a property, to something, to a goods, which is existing in real life. This is something we will see much more with the Internet of Objects, where every object will be active on the network, will be connected with some kind of number, and will also be will have its own wallet and its own presence, financial presence on the network, and will be able to transact, or for example, being paid to be activated. That's the most simple usage we can think of. But also reverse, maybe an object, a robot or a machine will be able to send bitcoins to be able to operate, buy a service from someone else. And then the final stage is the smart contracts, where you really, instead of sending just a token or a token with a message, you are actually sending a whole program which will execute itself in time, like a contract on paper where you have clauses that execute in time. But you need someone, you need a third party, notary or a lawyer who will execute those clauses in the time and will remember and put it in this calendar. But here, actually, the blockchain will be able to execute by itself these different clauses. So there will be a big change in how lawyers are going to work. And how notary are going to work. So we can predict maybe that in 5 years, in law schools, you start programming as a normal topic, programming of smart contracts. That might come. So just now quickly some very few big challenges that will come. The first challenge, which is already existing, that's why I put future in brackets, is the legal issue. It's actually more than a legal issue, is more a mental issue. Is more to say, okay, do we accept that Bitcoin is seen as a currency? It's not only a currency, it can be much more, but at least if we think it's a currency, it is used as a currency, then we can apply all the laws which are already applying to current currencies. And you can match 99% of the actual laws will apply on Bitcoin quite easily if those laws are well made. The second challenge, which is already happening now, actually, is the mutation, transformation of the financial world. All the traditional banks and financial system, they're changing it into a world which is completely transparent, and that's in the financial system which is completely transparent. They are pushed into that. But here you have suddenly a system which is 100% transparency. So how will a bank which is built around auditing, 4 eyes checks, risk departments, and a whole bunch of an army of people who are making sure that all the transactions are well made, how will they react when they have a system which does that already for them? The system is auditable and it doesn't need all those checks because you have the confidence built within the system. And so you will have a new type of business, like in communication, where you have new groups like Google and PayPal, and these groups have a different culture than the older groups, let's say. On political side, like international political side, we'll go into a world which is completely borderless. Okay, we already have this for information. It already brings problem, and we see what countries try to do to avoid this information that flow through. But again, here you will have the same thing on the financial level, which is going to bring much problem. But at the same time, transparency itself will bring much opportunity, and in terms of even corruption, fighting against corruption will be much more easier, or it will be more difficult to have systems in place that corrupted the system in place with a system where transactions are all transparent in the system. So, and that's the last thing, but that's more social in the next step of the society. Let's say that's how I see it personally. Is that once you build a fully 100% transparent society, then you actually you have to rebuild privacy on top of that. That's going to be the challenge of the digital identity that we were going to go through. It's a human right actually issue that will come. So there's big implication from my point of view of of this kind of things. We're moving from a society which was a information society to now to an exchange, to a digital exchange in a society, which is the layer after. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, this one really like. Saying Bitcoin is not a currency is like saying internet is not a telephone. It's actually a currency and much more.
Oh, great. I'm almost there. I can tell you if you succeed to explain to me, well, that it's already means a lot. Thank you very much. Quite a few questions before we move to Chiara's and William's presentation. I thought of well, you can think about your questions and you have remote participants. But now I spent a whole week discussing internet governance. And one of the issues in internet governance, for those of you who are not familiar, this is basically the key issue is the address book, which is run by ICANN. It's like a big address book of domain names. Mm-hmm. It's now business of $5 billion US dollars, registration of domain names. Now, what I would like to hear from you, how would you solve, Alexis, problem of, for example, registration on .vine? We had some Vine, I hope good Vine. .vine, which is now a big problem, .amazon, .vine in ICANN, because European Union complained that .vine cannot be managed by US-based registers. How would you solve this controversy with Namecoin? And you can save us hours and hours of the negotiations.
That's where we need an international organization.
No, what I understood from your presentation is that there is in a way automatic
technical solution. Don't be act.
But the problem with well, the challenges, or what is fantastic actually with a system like Bitcoin or Namecoin in this case, is that it's based on adoption. If people want it, then they have it. So if a group of people wants to have a .wine extension and they manage it in a peer-to-peer system like Namecoin, they can just have it. No one is going to stop them.
Okay, and then I register Jovan.wine. I plan to open winery if I get to retirement time, and I register Jovan.wine, and somebody else wants to have also Jovan on Alexis.wine. How would you solve this conflict?
So this is where the digital identity issue is going to be very important. Is that okay for now? With the standard register like we have now, you go to a judge and the judge can force the registry. Okay, but now you will have a system where you will have to go to the judge, you will fight against the person, and you will win, of course. But then the person will be obliged to transfer this to you. You have to find there are some differences here, of course, but you need to go through a process where at the end it's the person who has taken this domain name from you has to give it back to you. And it's going to bring us some other issues, of course.
I try to save some time for the negotiations, but ultimately the question is that the juridical system has to decide, exactly. which what we are fighting in ICANN system.
It will evolve at the same time, of course. Obviously, like it's been doing for years. The first time people were transacting or communicating over the internet, you had some new issues about, for example, the American view against the European view. You're not allowed to sell certain products that are allowed in the US but not allowed in Europe. And suddenly they were available in Europe. And it was solved. The tribunals and the legal system was adapted to the, we will have to find, we will have this legal system being adapted to that also.
Let me monopolize my chair's position while you're thinking about your question. Blockchain. It is decentralized, but is there any even vague form of centralization? Is anyone in charge?
No, but you can say that the mining process, it's very, you need to be very qualified, and it's a very high cost for now. So it tends to be a bit more centralized than 1 or 2 years ago, but it should really centralize once the cost of...
The quality control is achieved by the high entry point. You need to have a powerful system in order to enter into the.
But that's because the upfront cost of developing those technologies were very high, and when they got amortized, everybody will be able again to mine. So.
Okay. You have to understand that the blockchain is a large file which you can only add things at the end. So and you synchronize it over the network. So everyone has exactly the same copy. If someone tries to have a copy which is different, it won't be accepted by the network, and it won't be a valid copy. So you cannot fake it because you have to fight against everyone. You have to
potentially everyone could be could try to fake it. Potentially.
If you want to fake it, you need to achieve the consensus of the whole network, and that's.
Now, is trust implied in the system, or is there any? Because I chaired yesterday's session on cybersecurity and trust, and it was a really confusing session. What do we need for trust? Now, what you're arguing is that basically you don't have initial trust, but the system itself builds the trust.
So from going from the physical world to the digital world, in the physical world we have built trust by appointing some intermediates, which are third person, okay? And in the digital world, the trust is built by the network, by the decentralized distributed network. And this you will see that all the systems which are the most trustable and the most resilient are the ones which are distributed. Internet, the first one. Yeah? You can have Fukushima with an earthquake, nuclear meltdown, and a tsunami. Internet was working fine. It was the only thing that was working fine.
Now I use my monopoly. Now I suggest that we move to our next presenter. The question from remote participation, please.
Yeah.
Let us hear the question. We'll have one question from you, and then we'll move to the next presentation. If you can keep the question for the after the. Could you?
Yes, we have 5 questions from remote participants. Dave Williams is asking, more than 20 years ago, I met Michael Hart from Project Gutenberg at a conference in Illinois. He said that if he could create a system for tiny payments, 5 cents, 10 cents, all of his problems would be solved because of the scale of the internet. Will Bitcoin really make this possible?
Yeah, it should be possible because the transaction fee are already really, really low with Bitcoin, and they can get even lower.
Okay. Second question from Eleanor Apple. How do we rebuild privacy when most of the personal information are on social media platforms, etc.?
I think that the key thing is about ownership of the data. That at one point we'll have to decide that the data which is about a person is actually owned by that person, and that anyone who wants to use that data or collect that data has a kind of contract with this person and is not allowed to use it against this person. So today it's not the case. Today anyone can collect data on anyone and can use it against the person, and yeah, that's normal. So it's about ownership of this personal data. It has to go back to the individual.
Third question, and then we'll leave the last 2 for the after the.
If suppose Tainu is asking, following your presentation, Bitcoin protocol is built on the top of the internet and the public key infrastructure technologies. How is the value handled in the protocol?
Value. It's basically offer and offer and demand.
It's market.
And we have one, just not to ignore the audience, we have one question. Could you introduce yourself?
Yes, Robert O'Riordan, Chartered Accountant. You came before, Alexis, I think, and I asked you with the machine, and I asked you, and you replied very well. Maybe you could for the rest of this audience. Apparently, recently there was a fraud in Japan with a company in Japan, and a lot of people lost a lot of money. Could you elaborate on that? And apparently, what you said before was that you knew about it before it happened. And
so you're mentioning the Mt. Gox bankruptcy. So it was a company who was actually taking deposits from people in bitcoins, but also in US dollars, and then it was providing a service of it was a trading platform actually. So people were you can match offer and demand, but this service was kind of disconnected of the Bitcoin network. And then what happened is that those people, well, they were not very trustworthy. They were the first one to come in the game. They didn't have to apply auditing and all the traditional financial standards, and so they lost it at one point. Maybe they did something wrong. The procedures right now will maybe tell us a bit more. But basically, they lost the money. They made and they were not able to have a correspondence between the deposits of the people and what the bitcoins they really had. the lesson that we learned about this is two things. One is that we need some serious actors in the Bitcoin world, and the second is that the Bitcoin protocol was never affected by this. That means there were never a Bitcoin that disappeared with this. It's just that it went to someone, and we don't know exactly where it went, but it was spent, and it was not managed well.
Thank you. We'll continue with the two questions from the remote participants and the rest of the persons from the audience. Chiara, please.
Thank you. Well, hi everyone. My name is Chiara. I work for ZN Group. We are a commercial think tank, and we seek to promote societal advance through better finance and technology. What I will try to do today is basically give you an overview of where Bitcoin stands as a currency. Money is generally thought to have three distinct roles: as a medium of exchange, a store of value, and a unit of account. I will explain how Bitcoin compares to each of them. Finally, I'll also mention other applications for blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies, which I think is a field that deserves more attention. By way of background, back in 2005, we created Long Finance, an initiative which seeks to improve society's use and understanding of finance over the long term through programs, research, publications, and events. The Eternal Coin, which is one of Long Finance programs, explores in greater depth the nature of money and the concept of value over the long term. We first came across Bitcoins in 2011 when we were researching multilateral reciprocal trade using alternative currencies. This led to the publication of Capacity, Trade and Credit, Emerging Architectures for Commerce and Money, which is the publication you see in the bottom right. During that research project, we noted that Bitcoin was a digital currency that could be used across community to pay for real goods and services when accepted as payment. Today, there are nearly 13 million Bitcoins in circulation. By design, there is a limited supply, as was explained before, of 21 million, and it is estimated that we'll reach that limit by 2140. Bitcoin, as Alexis and Mathieu explained, is issued as a reward for payment processing work called mining. The other way to acquire Bitcoin is actually either as a result of this mining process or by buying Bitcoins on exchanges where you exchange them for real-world currencies or fiat currencies. Bitcoin market capitalization is about $8 billion, though it's been fluctuating as Bitcoin price has fluctuated. One of the questions that has been raised over and over is actually how many people own Bitcoin and presumably use them. There have been some wild speculations on the subject, some suggesting that actually fewer than 50 people own significant amount of Bitcoin, others saying that there are as many users as unique public key addresses. I'd say the most reliable work I could find was the work of John Radcliffe. He basically took the total number of blocks of transaction as of 10 January, so about 280,000 blocks, that comprised over 30 million transactions, so made with Bitcoin since its inception. Those transactions came from 25.5 million unique public key addresses. Now, he went further than that. He was like, okay, so if we have 25.5 unique public key addresses, what's their Bitcoin balance? He found that nearly 23 million had a zero Bitcoin balance, leaving 2.5 unique public key addresses with a positive Bitcoin balance. Now, he noted that actually only 1,443 people had only 1,443 addresses had a balance between 1,000 and over 100,000 Bitcoins. This number rises to about 100,000 addresses if you take into account keys that have a balance between 1 and 1,000 Bitcoin. Now remember that actually one person or one user can have multiple public key addresses. You can have as many wallets as you want to some extent. And that suggests that actually the actual number of users is lower than what I'm showing here. Now about the price of Bitcoin. When we look at the price evolution in dollars, we can see that it's been very volatile, especially in the past 9 months. Basically, last year, we went from a price of about $13 in January to over $1,200 by the end of the year. Since earlier this year, the Bitcoin price has been going slightly down, and down to $400 in April and about $600 today. Looking at daily volatility, which is here in red, and moving averages on a monthly basis in blue, shows us that Bitcoin has a fairly elevated price volatility at times, though the market seems to have stabilized between November 2011 and November 2012, and there are signs of early stabilization, early signs of stabilization since, I'd say, January of this year. The volatility, however, has implications for Bitcoin's potential as a currency. I said at the beginning, money is thought to have 3 distinct roles: as a medium of exchange, as a store of value, and as a unit of account. Bitcoin as a medium of exchange seems fairly attractive. It has lower transaction costs because the technology eliminates the need for a central clearinghouse or other financial institution to act as a third party to financial transactions. It's also very attractive to businesses because Bitcoin has lower transaction fees for users, and especially if you compare it with like credit card providers, they usually have higher fees. Bitcoin is also an interesting alternative to cash. There's a public ledger of transactions, so you have a full history of transaction. It's secure and transparent, and there's no chance of counterfeiting it. Plus, the fixed supply should also help to limit inflation within the Bitcoin world. Bitcoin is said to have the most potential as a medium of exchange for e-commerce payments and money transfer. However, as we've seen before, the elevated price volatility hinders acceptance. Businesses are unwilling to take the risk for that price volatility. Plus, there is a lack at the moment of consumer and user protection. As I said, for most people like you and me, if we want to have Bitcoins, we need to buy them on exchanges. Given the recent hacking attacks, there's actually, unless you have some deposit or investment protection, you have actually no chance of retrieving stolen or lost funds. And actually what the sir behind was mentioning, one of the big Bitcoin exchange, Mongo, collapsed earlier this year. And they have, however, open claims for users to at least file an application in the hope of retrieving their funds. Bitcoin as a store of value, in theory, it could be an interesting store of value. After all, it's being modeled after gold, and Bitcoin and gold share interesting attributes. Both neither pays an interest, both have a limited supply, and both are more difficult to trace than most financial assets, except cash. Like gold, Bitcoin also shows a negative correlation with more risk-sensitive assets. Some indeed have argued that Bitcoin price appreciation in the second half of last year, when it went really up to over $1,000, has been more about Bitcoin as a store of value or investment than as a medium of exchange. However, gold has gained a reputation as a unique and safe store of value over millennia. Can Bitcoin achieve the same given security issues and allegations of affiliation with black market and other illegal trade activities? This will probably take some time. Also, Bitcoin elevated price volatility compromises its role as a store of value by adding uncertainty around the long-term value of Bitcoin. The current price volatility, especially if you look at last year, is probably a function of the speculative nature of the market, which produces rather unstable returns amidst poor liquidity, as investors were attracted or are perhaps still attracted by the extreme returns that Bitcoin presents. A lot of effort, however, are being devoted to promote Bitcoin more as a medium of exchange. So how does Bitcoin compare with other types of currencies? Well, as we've seen with gold, gold has been an adequate unit of account and a medium of exchange recognized across borders for millennia. And it remains today a store of value for many. If we take fiat currencies, which are basically tokens issued by governments that allow people to extinguish tax debt, fiat currencies tend to be a good medium of exchange within a tax zone, a country, for example, or a region, if you take the Eurozone, a variable unit of account, and they leak sometimes value. If we take in specifically the US dollar example, dollars have been a good unit of account, an enormous medium of exchange still today, though a fairly poor store of value. So what about Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin so far has been a fairly poor unit of account due to its unstable price. But again, Bitcoin is recent. It only has like 4 or 5 years of history, so we need to see. It has potential to become a growing medium of exchange. However, so far it's also been a poor store of value. Now, let's look beyond Bitcoin for a second. So like my colleagues have highlighted before, Bitcoin is not the only cryptocurrency. The blockchain technology that underpins it is actually open, and there are today over 50 identifiable cryptocurrencies with different names. We tend to call them altcoins or alternative coins. Bitcoin is probably the most popular right now. Second, we think that the blockchain technology, which we see a little bit here on the image, could have application in other sectors. What we find interesting is basically the fact that you have a public ledger, which prevents you from making the same transaction twice, the transactions database that is shared across all nodes. It's private and secure, and it seems, at least the technology, I'm not talking about the exchanges, indestructible. One obvious application, area where blockchain technology could be applied is wherever you have registries, especially those that are shared between different people, organizations, and units across the space. Be it ships registry, artworks registry, tax registry, and so on. Here I've listed a couple of options that are more specific to the financial world, where we think that actually blockchain technology could be applied and should be explored. I think like of those that I've listed, the most interesting one are around insurance, corporate voting, and the identity blockchain going back to the digital identity for anti-fraud protection and anti-money laundering. Right, to conclude, I'd like to highlight 4 things. First, Bitcoin seems to have the most potential as a medium of exchange, as we've seen, but price volatility should stabilize and security and communication on exchanges should be improved. Second, Bitcoin is not a legal tender, meaning we have no obligation to accept it. So ultimately, Bitcoin's value depends on people's perception of how much it's worth. Third, regulators around the world are starting to acknowledge digital currencies and to think of how this could fit within the broader payment and tax system. New regulation will likely raise Bitcoin transaction costs and thus offset the main benefit it has as a currency. Related to this, over time, let's imagine Bitcoin grows bigger and actually competes with fiat currencies. It is unlikely that governments would just leave it there to be. They're likely to want to crack it, especially as they don't get revenue from issuing it because governments do not control Bitcoin creation. And therefore, like the seigniorage, which is the revenue that governments normally earn from issuing money, is lost. Finally, as I've said, blockchain technology is certainly innovative, and we think it could be applied to other sectors and areas, something that we will look into in the near future with long finance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, so the great presentation. Now we'll take one again, and then we will move to the Q&A session. We can
move the computer. Oh, yeah, we can change pages. Okay. Yeah, I think that's probably easy.
Yep. good afternoon. So I'm here to ask this question. So I asked this question myself. Cryptocurrencies as development enablers. And I say cryptocurrencies because I don't want to talk about this Bitcoin. And what I want to do here is like make this a bit conversational. Maybe I'm gonna take advantage that I'm the last one. And I want to ask you to ask yourself this question: like, can we use Bitcoin technology, cryptocurrencies, the blockchain, all what we were talking about? Can we use it for good? So I have my answer for myself. So I want you to find your answer. So my answer is yes, definitely. But no yet. It's not ready. That's what I think. Okay, so I'm gonna try to explain why I think. So first, we have the issues. I'm going to start talking about the issues because when I engage conversation with people about Bitcoin and they don't know well, they want to learn, they always ask questions. Yes, but the volatility, the price is not secure. People got hacked, empty gox in Japan. People are scared. People, they're afraid of this new technology, and it's logic. Historically, we've been afraid of new technology. So let's go. I mean, let's talk a bit about it. So my friends here, they talk about volatility already. Big issue, of course. If we're going to use it for remittance or money transaction, it should be stable. So we use it. Security. So security is a big issue. We know people is getting hacked, but let's say that there are two sides of security. There is the technical security, and in this sense, Bitcoin is way better than any other technology we know to make these kind of transactions. The problem with security is that people is not educated about it, and they get hacked because they don't know how to protect their data. In general, any kind of data, not only their Bitcoins, but people get hacked and the personal pictures got public, etc. So we need to educate people about it. Lack of legal framework, another big issue. But I mean, I think things are advancing, and it's really a big issue because this is what scared, let's say, the big businesses or banks or to get involved because they say we don't know the rules of the game, so we won't play. Not enough information. Well, that is changing. Obviously, we're here for that. Inaccurate information. There's a lot of inaccurate information about Bitcoin out there. People who don't understand Bitcoin, they want to write about it, they want to take an analysis, and it's okay. We all want to start talking about what we know, but Bitcoin is a complex, really complex thing, and it's new. So we have to be careful where we get, what are our sources of information. Lack of infrastructure. And here I'm talking about internet access, for example. If we want to use Bitcoin as a development tool, we need to actually bring it to the people who really need it. So we need, for this, we have to talk about topics like broadband penetration, mobile internet, etc. And finally, enemies to make peace with. And we all know that we all for sure read articles about how bad Bitcoin is, how only drug dealers use it. There's a lot of hate. Bitcoin in general, cryptocurrencies get a lot of hate. And it's okay. It's completely normal. And to illustrate that, I actually want to talk about the Metallica versus Napster case. I don't know if you remember the year 2000, Napster was created. Napster was created by a 19-year-old kid who decided that it would be very cool to share information on the internet, peer-to-peer. So he created a program that will allow us to download something and share music. And well, he thought it was cool. But the point is that some companies, including Metallica, they said, oh, but you're stealing from us. They were kind of right. But they went with a lot of power against it legally. And what happened is that even Metallica fans, they saw it like, but we are not doing it because we want to steal from you. It's because it's easier, because now it's cool to have an MP3 player. So they actually start burning their Metallica albums on national television. So it was not very smart for Metallica to do that. It created an opposite reaction. And where are they now? They are selling their music online through iTunes, etc. So what they did, they had to adapt to understand that this is a technology that was here to stay, and they had to play now by this rule. And this is it's a good analogy to think with Bitcoin. Bitcoin can be bad if we let it be bad, but it can be very good, potentially be very good if we use it properly. So instead of just attacking it, trying to kill it, that's not. I don't think it's possible. So let's use it for good. Let's adapt our business models. Let's adapt the way we think about money, about transactions, about communication in general. And yeah, we have to shift. We have to evolve, right? Like the music and film industry did, and now they give us all the content online. Okay, now solutions. We talk about the issues, but there are solutions. There are solutions that are on their way. And one thing, for example, for volatility is financial instruments. And I know my friends here have been working in some financial instruments and other companies around the world to allow, let's say, like how do you call it, like an index. Exactly, like the index, you fix prices in each 3 hours, so that allows that you can get in and out on the same price in a window of 2-3 hours.
That's guaranteeing exchange rates.
Guaranteeing exchange rates, exactly. That's a great solution. For example, if we want to use it for remittances, if we want to send money to another country, and you just change your Swiss francs into Bitcoin, and then you know when it's gonna get there, because it'll take a second, they will change it back at the same rate. Yeah, you want to say something? Okay, then security. Well, cybersecurity education is a solution. We need it anyway, not because Bitcoin is here. We need cybersecurity education. We all need cybersecurity education because people is complaining about privacy, but we don't know how to manage privacy online, right? But there's many good things going on, and I'm just going to give an example. Is the IQ Global Cybersecurity Index. So all they're here to promote government strategic at a national level, and all these goals they have. So they are working for it. So what should we do? Support them. Support all the organizations that are actually trying to educate people about cybersecurity. Very good. We're on the way. Then good services, and this is very general. The good Bitcoin wallets, good index of people to read about it, everything. Clear legislation. That's a hard one, but I guess governments are on the way. We have seen some examples like in the US, the IRS declared Bitcoin or taxed Bitcoin as a property. So well, that's an experiment. We'll see how that goes. All the governments have gone different ways. But actually, I want to take advantage of this moment to actually to reach legislators, if there's one watching, or there's one here, or diplomats, people talking that work with international organizations. Like we have to achieve this together, because we have to merge all the different knowledge from policymakers, IT staff, economists, all together to understand this complex problem and reach this legislation. Insurance, that's like people always compare credit cards with Bitcoin. So it's, well, yeah, if my credit card gets stolen, well, and somebody uses it, the bank, you know, you're going to give me the money back. Say, oh, yeah, I tell them first. That's because it's really easy to steal all the data of your credit card, because you always send all the data when you pay. And well, indeed, I think Bitcoin needs this kind of solution as well. Let's say that a financial institution that does Bitcoin, and if they hold your Bitcoin account, if they lose your money, at least the government can be responsible for it. Yeah, I know there's in France there's this one Bitcoin exchange how they want to become like a wallet in a bank, and they did an association with one of the banks in Liberties. And now well, it's on the web. Normally, the French government will give insurance on your account until up to 100,000 euros, I think. So little by little. Consumer protection, we talked about it. The scroll, for example. Financial advisory services, I think that's another solution that's important, and is as well happening. A lot of private companies being created around that. Infrastructure, and again, that's the internet access for for people who really need it in developing countries. But once again, we have people working on that, and these are some figures from Mathieu. 3 billion internet users by the end of this year. I think that's very, very good, and we know that internet penetration or mobile penetration and for continents like Africa, it's huge and it's growing. So that's really important to set up the environment for development projects. And then accurate information from reliable sources. So this is subjective, right? That's why I wrote that. Who are my reliable sources? And again, this is for the policymakers and diplomats. If you work with the international organizations, the NGOs, academic institutions, if you think that those are your reliable sources of information, that is your duty, if you're interested, or if you should go to them and ask them. I think Bitcoin is interesting. I think Bitcoin can bring a lot of good for my region. Can you do a research on it? Can I get information from you? What do you think? Can we think about a development project using this technology? Okay, so let's say that all the problems are solved. Now what? How do we come to this mindset of, well, yeah, we're going to use Bitcoin for development? Well, we first need to understand cryptocurrencies. And it's really, really complex. I've been trying to study it for a couple of years, and still so many new things happening every day that it's really hard to get a grasp of everything. And analogies are really helpful to understand what cryptocurrencies are. Is it like a PayPal? Is it more like credit card? Is it like Western Union? Is all of that? Is it more? Well, that's good to start understanding it, but we also have to understand that Bitcoin is new. So analogy just helps you until a certain point, but then you need to abstract yourself from this new concept, really new concept. Then we have to understand the risk and how to mitigate them, in particular for national economies. That's the goal. Many countries are worried that, particularly countries with weak economies, say like, well, but Bitcoin it might be a threat for economy, especially, for example, countries that are trying to implement contract exchange controls because they're worried about the local currency. Well, absolutely, it's good that they're worried, and they have to work and understand it to see how to mitigate that issue. Because I don't think just not talking about it, not thinking about Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies, it's not going to solve the problem. If your population as a country start using it and adopting it, then you are in trouble. But if you embrace it and you offer as a country services around it, and you tell your population like this new technology that will help the economy, and we are building services that you trust, that you should trust because you trust the government or the institution or this private company, we are supporting these private companies for it, then you can actually help the economy. Then understand the byproduct and how we can use them. So byproduct, for example, is the blockchain. The blockchain was a concept that was created in order to implement Bitcoin. But as Alexis explained before, there are many other uses. Like which one mentioned the contract, the property contract, name coin for the DNS. So there are many other things, like not only money exchange, not only that kind of implementation, but there are many that I'm sure we are still well, we will discover actually together when we actually get to work on it properly on a big scale. Then identifying advantages. So an example of the cryptocurrencies was a printing press. And I think this because counterfeit of money is a big issue. And more has been becoming more complicated in the sense that we print money in X country, and then 20, 30 years later, we discovered that it's getting easier for people to actually get access to the technology that allows them to get really close to the product we are printing. So then we decide, well, we need to change that. We need to improve our technology. We do some research, We implement the technology, we print, we create new bills, we print them, and then it's a huge process to start, getting out of circulation the old bills, getting the new bill. That's cool. We are doing good right now, but at some point we won't be able to limit the access to technology to the people trying to do this shady business, and we will get to the point where this physical technology is not going to allow us to keep up, and just we will have to reprint, to create new bills each 5 years, because the people do the counterfeit, they get access to that technology, and that's a potential, sorry, an advantage that having a cryptocurrency has over printed money, printed cash. Then identify potential like national, pre-mine, and central bank backed currency. Why not? Let's not talk about Bitcoin. Let's talk about Swiss coin, for example. Why not? If they want to create a currency that is not mining involved, there's a limited amount, or they create the new currency where they want, why not? Because this is a technology that allows us create a game with some rules, right? And this game can be a new currency, a national currency. That's an option. Or even an international organization currency as well for development projects. That's an option as well. Then, of course, the last thing is to create cross-functional teams and share knowledge, legislate, support others in private and public sector, code, research, and implement. So all we have to do in order to get to do good things with cryptocurrencies for development projects. So what kind of problems can we tackle? Well, 2.5 billion adults, like that's half of adult population, do not use formally financial services to save or borrow. That's kind of obvious there, how Bitcoin can actually help those people to have financial instruments on the hand, right? Transaction costs in remittance transfer system around the world. Well, we know that the governments are getting together to discuss this, because they understand that these fees on remittance, well, they're trying to bring those fees down in order to let that money reach the place it should reach. Then put the feeling on money or government bonds. Again, that's what we discussed before. And small entrepreneurs have no access to important business and services. And then some examples like smart property contracts, like the examples they gave before. Another thing is proof of existence. I think that's a good example of how that could help small businesses. Proof of existence is basically based on the blockchain. How to explain it quickly? It lets you put information in the blockchain, meaning that it's distributed all around. And this information is an encrypted version of your document. So your document, let's say, is a new discovery, new creation you did. So you create your document, you encrypt it, and you send that encryption to the blockchain. So it's now out there in the world. So basically what that allows you to prove in the future that actually you wrote that document. So we're talking about, at that time, so we're talking about intellectual property, right? So there's many really small business or entrepreneurs or informal actors that they don't have access to this kind of register. And this is a way to allow them. So some examples, we don't have much time. We have open science, where we can do direct crowdfunding for open scientific research. So we're talking here about scientists who want to share the research, to have public information, but there's always the issue of the lack of financing. And here we're talking about, this is happening already. People who's donating through Bitcoin to projects they believe in, research for new medicine, for any kind of scientific research. Then we have the automated open source bounty for apps, where basically, and one example is a project in Kenya where there are some startups creating games to educate people about corruption, about how to be a good citizen in a fun way for kids. And of course, they have to develop all these projects, and a lot of software development is costly. Well, basically what they're doing sometimes is creating a bounty in a particular, let's say, they need somebody to implement a solution, like a coding, and they just publish it. People send the code and that they can pay directly. Yes. Okay. Okay. Then, well, remittance, we talk about trade facilitation, for example, some payment ledger for custom automated systems. We can talk about that during the question. Then second national currency, why not? We know here in Switzerland we have the Vira, I think it's pronounced, which is the second national currency they created in the 1930s because, well, during the recession, that's an instrument they created to help the country. And, well, a good example will be to create a second national currency for other countries. A virtual one is way cheaper. And then we have electronic voting that we can do over the blockchain as well. Yep. So quickly, cryptocurrencies here to stay. So my main message will be just educate, and that's what we're doing here. I really want to thank the DiploFoundation for that because this is the most important thing.
Thank you. Thank you, William, for great summary, and Chiara for presentation on monetary and financial aspects. I'm sure there are many questions from the. I have many questions, but I won't monopolize my role as the chair. Just one observation is what I've been hearing as echoing message here is question of trust in the currency, trust in technology that creates Bitcoin, trust in the system, and that's probably ultimately trust is behind the normal currency, behind the trade. Therefore, that's probably in the very zoom out perspective one of the key issues, how to create and maintain trust. Now the floor is yours for the question, then for all participants. Please, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Nick D'Agostino. I'm at the actually IGF Secretariat. So I heard a great line yesterday that was the best design process cannot overcome certain interests. And so my question is about basically the governance challenge that Bitcoin faces. And so Bitcoin sort of operates between these two venues of internet governance and financial governance. But different interests occupy both these venues. So do you think that moving forward, it's best for Bitcoin advocates to engage in governance and best policy discussions at internet governance forums, or through financial governance regimes like the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision or the World Economic Forum?
Second question, I think. Yeah.
I actually have a series of two questions. One is just to him, and the first two are for Alexis and Mathieu, or anyone else can answer. It's about the identity of the user when using Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. So we have the unique personal key, which is a number, which is inside a wallet. Now, if someone was to take my phone with my key in it, they become the proprietor of that wallet, and then they can do transactions they wish. So in essence, the transparency factor, I'm just wondering, at what level is the person who's created the wallet and has used it able to actually say, this is my money and my transaction, and not what the wallet contains? And secondly, is there a way to make a blockchain private? As in, is it possible to create an open source project where there is a membership entry, a encrypted entry, so that there is one blockchain that is not open source to everyone, but is only open source to a certain community of people, therefore creating a currency which is within a currency who is open source? And my last question ties in with him is that there's a huge issue that I think we've all addressed slightly, but not directly, and it's really the fact of that any cryptocurrency will create direct competition with a national currency, of which most of our governance structure and power is based on. If I have a cryptocurrency worth $10 billion, the United States of America is not going to be too happy that I'm going to start trading in their country with that currency because they technically are not allowed to tax it. So I think there's something that needs to be evolved in further than governments, and it's to actually address the fact that this is a competitive, potentially groundbreaking commercial and economic factor. So those two questions and potentially anything from you guys. Thank you.
Wait, we have one more question and then two more. Or shall we answer this? Okay, Alex.
I'll give some element of response here. First, about where to discuss about these issues. I think it's everywhere because it will challenge everyone. I don't think the financial industry or even the countries will be able to stop it, in the sense that the market where Bitcoin type of technology is at best, micropayments, is something that is in big need right now, and you have all the people who don't have a bank account in the world that are active economically but are not active enough to have a bank account, but active enough to have a cell phone, are using a lot of ways of exchanging electronically. They're finding ways to do this. So in Africa, we have this M-Pesa, which is extremely strong, which is, in terms of usage, very much advanced in what we have here. It's phone-to-phone money transfer. And we are discovering this in Europe with Bitcoins, but it's been ongoing for several years already in these areas. So there's a competitive advantage of cryptocurrency against what I would call, what are fiat currencies, but actually they're also virtual currency. It's another aspect we have to see is that the currency like dollars, euros, and Swiss francs are 99% completely virtual. They're already computerized. They're already digitalized. They're in databases of banks. But they have one big failure. They're just a line of code there, and they can be duplicated. And you can just create money by saying, okay, I'm adding in your bank account 1,000. And Bitcoin doesn't allow this. Bitcoin builds the security and the trust within its own system. So it has an advantage in terms of a transparent world where you want to have a financial world under control. So yeah, these are some happenings. IGF and Brazil. I think I said both. So.
Should you address it in the IGF or in
both? In both.
That's the question.
Yeah, if I may quickly some points. On the first and the last question, I'll tie them together if you don't mind. Do digital currencies compete with fiat currencies? Yes, at scale. At the moment, we don't have that scale. So the answer is no. Like I said in my presentation, over time, clearly governments won't be indifferent to it. The second thing that relates to that is how regulators around the world are currently reacting to it. So basically, yes, they've been at best like neutral. Okay, it's there, but it's so marginal, so we don't really care. Or they've been quite unwelcoming about it and quite critical. Some, I would say in general, governments struggle as to how to categorize Bitcoin. Is it a currency? Is it a trade token? Is it a meaningless token? Is it a commodity? Is it an asset? Some countries have positioned themselves. The US decided to categorize it as an asset, so that has implications in terms of taxation. I'd say that classification is actually very important because it has implications for corporate and personal taxation, value-added taxation, monetary policy formulation, and so on. I'll give two examples of governments that I'm fairly familiar with. One particularly is the Albanese government in the UK, one of the numerous offshore centers, that has actually indicated that it would regulate positively Bitcoin. The second thing, they're currently in talks with the Royal Mint, which is basically the issuer of funds, about producing gold coins, so physical coins based on Bitcoin in the form of a commemoration coin. So that's an interesting step forward. The second government I'd like to highlight is China. China currently forbids financial institutions in China from handling Bitcoin transactions. There's a lot of speculation around why is that, are they afraid? It's true as well that a lot of speculation around Bitcoin last year, where, I mean, the activity was actually based in China. Some say that actually China wants to create its own cryptocurrency, so that we don't have any confirmation yet. On the governance challenge, I think it's twofold. One, I would say that organization and association like the Swiss Bitcoin Association should engage more with governments and public institutions about, what it is, how it works, and what they can do about it. The second thing, I think that standards, voluntary standards like ISO standards, I mean, that's looking at the international level, but you could start at a national level. Standards around how to manage altcoins and cryptocurrency systems are important, and more importantly, performance standards are even more important in terms of governance, reporting, custody of Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. and exchange systems. And I think there was one last point, blockchain private. Can you make it private? That's what I was actually trying to say with the other application. You could imagine a blockchain system that is private, where you need to define entry requirements to be part of it. So that's why I think like blockchain technology could have interesting application in specific sectors. Say, insurance is actually, well, no, corporate voting is actually the most straightforward, because you need to prove your identity as a shareholder, so you do that with the system. But then from the company perspective, they need to know that their shareholders are voting and how they're voting on what. But the anonymity of the public key is actually an interesting aspect. The decentralized nature of the system is also very interesting. So just about that.
Great. Thank you, Chiara, for this comprehensive answer. I think we have now some questions from remote participants. We're very proud of Diplo to have the equal participation from remote or in city, which is not fair for you because you made an effort to come here. They're sitting by computers, but life is not always fair. Let us hear a few questions from.
Thank you. There is a great dynamics in the online chat. Mina Modric is asking a question: with a definite number of bitcoins, is there a danger of deflationary spiral?
Quick answer.
Chiara.
No. Well, there are rumors that yes, actually, that's exactly what might happen. But that would only be the case once we've reached the limited supply, and that depends also on the liquidity of the market.
And I would like to add that it doesn't have an influence about the technology, because you have other cryptocurrencies which are built as inflationary systems, where every year you have a 5% extra emission that is made within the money. So it depends on the model you choose. Bitcoin is fixed amount, and you have some other currencies where you have a 5% increase every year.
Next question from remote, then we'll move back to the audience.
Okay, so there is another question from Mina Modric. Excuse me. Will quantum computers obsolete bitcoins with all other cryptography?
No, it might be possible to crack the way we use Bitcoin now with quantum computers, but then we can adapt all the algorithm to be quantum resistant almost instantly. We just need the whole consensus. So.
Okay, now we are getting back to the room. I think there was your hand was the first, I would say, from the Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah, and then we'll move down there.
Hi, good afternoon. Kevin Swift from Trinidad and Tobago. And I would just like to thank all the presenters for that wonderful presentation on Bitcoin. This is the second time I'm having a profound discussion on Bitcoin that went past 5 minutes, so I'm very grateful for all the different perspectives I've put forward. My question, however, it's centered on the development potential, and probably will be best directed to Mr. Taborda.
Yes.
Right. So for me, the development potential and development context, when we're looking at sustainable ways of development, of achieving development, right? And in particular for developing countries that have limited resources, they have difficulties accessing the latest technology, they have even resource challenges in terms of electricity and the like. The environment for it may not be appropriate. Do you happen to know, are there any examples you can point towards that show some level of readiness among developing countries or any developing country towards accepting Bitcoin as part of a wider solution to actual problem they're facing?
Yes. Well, yes. I mean, not the government per se, but we have seen a lot of private companies being created. And one example is in Kenya, where, because of course they have this experience with M-Pesa, they are precisely creating kind of or replicating M-Pesa using Bitcoin. And the idea is that it won't, first it's decentralized, and then it facilitates the exchange not only inside Kenya but all around the world. But I think that's the best example. I don't know if you have any other in mind?
No, that's it. No proxies that exist that you send Bitcoin to a phone number, and it's automatically transferred in M-Pesa. So it's transparent, and you can send it from anywhere in the world.
Kenya is often quoted as a place where these things are happening now. And I think we have a question. And then we will move to...
Yes, hello. Thank you all for being here today. My name is David French, and I'm the founder of Motions, which is an association which has the goal of creating a global currency for the environment to empower people to value nature in an equitable way. My question to the panel is, out of all of these cryptocurrencies that exist today, and I understand there are close to 100, if not more, which differentiators excite you about any of these currencies?
For example,
the question, what is your favorite cryptocurrency?
You have some example like solar coins, and you can mine those coins, and you need to only use electricity that's been created by renewable means. So you need to certify that your mining hardware is using renewable energy, and when you get this certificate, you can mine those coins. So they're kind of the most ecological coins you can find around now. But that's one idea. You could develop that, and I don't know all of the initiatives.
So yeah, what you will see for now, you have the Bitcoin, which is taking the most place, and maybe the second one is the Litecoin, and then you have a couple of 2, 3 or other which are following, which are also quite interesting. What is important is also the community which is built around. So, for example, one that has sparked very quickly lately was the .dog coin, because it was meant to be a tipping coin, really to be used as a fun and tipping coin. And it has some value, of course, but it's very low. So what we will see in the future is that there will be a lot of, I think, some of the complementary currencies which are today already existing are going to move to cryptocurrencies, which are community-based. I'm thinking about miles, air miles, for example, or your supermarket card. All these are kind of currency type things, and which are built around a community, and they are more private indeed, based on the card, and they will be they will use the same technology. So you will have a mixture of these kind of currencies and the currencies which are more open, like Bitcoin, and then also you will have governments who will try to enter those. Who will win in this battle? I think it will be a mixture. It will be a mixture because each coin has its interest, and the investments are different. I think Bitcoin now will keep its place for some time because people have set up so much investment in there, and so it will stay on.
I think we have 2 questions now on this side from the Petrus Nicholas. And then, this is our Diplos community from our course on internet governance. Diplomats based in Geneva, Petrus from Lithuania.
Thanks, Roxana, at the Graduate Institute. So we talked about reliable infrastructure as a prerequisite. So I was wondering how important is net neutrality for the operation of cryptocurrencies, and what can be done to ensure it? Thank you.
It is important, of course, because you have to see that Bitcoin protocol. Well, it's like HTTP protocol or TCP. Well, it's a layer of in there. So you need to have a neutral infrastructure there. Maybe it will be when governments will realize that their digital economy will depend on a valid cryptocurrency system that works well. Maybe they will reconsider digital net neutrality in another way. But it will be a development element that is important. Then if you don't do that, then what will happen is that it will, like always in the internet world, in the digital world, if you block things, if you block the communication at one point, it will just try to find another path, and it will go through another mean, which will usually is less controllable. So Bitcoin works through Tor networks and through other types of networks. So there will be always a solution if there is too tight controls on it.
We have 2 more questions.
Hi, my name is Peter Polinsky. I work at the mission of Latvia here in Geneva. My question concerns personal data. What kind of personal data do you have to give up to make the Bitcoin account? Can it be done with the identity? Or?
To create a wallet, you don't need to give any information. You just need to get a software, and it will create the wallet for you.
The second part of my question. If you have an account in a bank, you make money transfers, these transfers can be traced, and at some point the information can be used by law enforcement or bad guys. Can something like this can be done with the transactions among Bitcoin users? If you know number of public key, the person who holds this.
Yeah, that's why I think it's not so good for money laundering or anything like that, because when you identify what address belongs to who, then you can trust all the transaction he did from the first point where he gets those Bitcoin and where did he spend them. So
I would be even more strong is that Bitcoin is by design transparent. So it's more complicated to trace financial transfers in dollars, for example, because you have to be an authority and you have to be a judge and to go through each institution and to trace the whole thing. A simple citizen cannot do it, but you can look at my Bitcoin account if you know the number, and you can trace everything in and out of my Bitcoin account. Yes.
Yeah, but by design, you don't know that Bitcoin account number that way belongs to you.
I'll give you an example which is very simple in terms of donations. You have association NGOs who are putting us Bitcoin accounts to accept donation. You can monitor this account to see if the money has come, how much they have, and where do they use it. So as soon as the person makes the link itself with the account, then there is you lose this anonymity.
The question who can I'm proud of.
Not the private key.
Owner of the Bitcoin. How you can associate this to myself?
So just someone showed exactly the same kind of things on television as Span said, yes, I also received 10 francs, and someone on the other side of the camera scanned the code and took the money away. So be careful. This one is okay. So how do you make the link? Either you say it's yours, or as soon as you make an exchange with something which is a good, for example, when you go to you go and buy a car, for example, with Bitcoins, of course, the person who sells the car knows it's you, so they can make the link there.
Well, now the owner of the ATM knows you have that because you gave your number to buy it,
My
right?
mobile number.
So it will not be possible to, let's say, fund a political campaign with Bitcoin because the money will not be traceable.
In the US, they've accepted donations. They're accepting donation for political campaigns in Bitcoin. So, and just if I may, coming back to your question, with Bitcoin and the blockchain technology, you have a public ledger of transactions. So all the transactions are there. X Bitcoins went from that public key to that public key, and so on and so forth. But you have that relative anonymity aspect that unless you disclose this public key belongs to me, nobody knows it. But then you could imagine a system where actually law enforcement agencies could make that link between the public key and the private key in court, obviously. Something that you suggested earlier as well.
And a good example is, for example, because you're accepting donation for a campaign, so the authorities will see that you are using this address and they tell you, well, you can only accept not more than this amount of money through Bitcoin, and they will be able to audit that. And if you receive an incredible amount of money, they don't let you keep, you can always send it back to the address, and it will normally make you send it back to the same address where you received it.
Okay, we have one question over there and quick questions, and then we'll try to wrap up. Please, Nicholas.
Yeah, my name is Nikolai from Moldova Mission. You know, we have like a thing in my country that when the four people will tell you the same thing, you will definitely oppose that. And another thing is that when somebody tells you that everybody is responsible for everything, then it means nobody is responsible for nothing. So right now, I just wanted to ask, okay, open source is nice and beautiful thing, but by the end of the day, even internet started being open source until 1993, but then it's getting private. First, how do you, I mean, before even the people who created internet, they thought it will be always free and open, and it's not. Why should the Bitcoin will be always open source? And the second thing is that, okay, that's you have you know, this like what I understand from all of this for discussion is that it basically helps you with the small transactions when you don't need to, you could avoid some bank fees or exchange fees. So you will have basically some amount of money which you put in some, you know, codes, and then which is, I don't know, I saw it, you show it over there, it's like 36 symbols, yes, for public key, and how many symbols for private key? I just try to see 52. So it's like it's 32 this encrypting the 32 bits encrypting code, exactly. Okay. So it's like how just try to understand. It's good for the small transaction. You could avoid some fees from the bank. You could avoid some exchange rate. But who does believe in that? I don't know. I mean, could you? Why it's not a kind of eBay, for example? Why you don't exchange, you know, not money, but I don't know, materials in data in the internet? Why it's money? Because in the internet there are a lot of things that you could exchange on some things. I mean, he wants to buy 5 songs. I want to sell a movie. So why do we need money in between? Why it's not a Bitcoin? Why it's not a Bitcoin? I don't know.
You don't have barter bay?
Sorry?
You don't have barter bay yet?
But it's also because we do multilateral trade. So barter is bilateral by nature. It's very difficult to organize it. And money is just a way to organize trade, basically.
No, but the money is the last thing which fits to the open source. Because open source is by definition something against money or against the exchange.
The open source is the technology, it's not the currency. Then you can use the technology, meaning the blockchain technology, to develop a cryptocurrency. But you can use it for something else, develop a voting system. A voting system is not a currency.
In a way, there is the point what Nicholas mentioned. There are uses beyond the financial one. To exchange different, to exchange favors or exchange.
But the technology is the same. Yeah. I mean, the basic technology, then you can adapt it to your needs. That's what's open.
So why didn't you start with that? Why we start with the money?
I thought it was open technology.
So, we started with the exchange of music and Napster and all of these things, and then it got a bit bumpy, and then we moved to the money.
Yeah, fine. I'm fine.
Good. Well, that's wow. It's really something, huh? That's great. I'm really I learned a lot, and that I have at least 10 questions, and I'm sure that we have many questions from remote participants. And what we decided to do is basically at the Geneva Internet Platform, we started with this ATM machine at the opening session of Geneva Internet Platform. And we realized there were many people around Alex and Mathieu. And then we said, okay, why we don't organize this session? And I think the next step will be to have a one-day seminar covering Bitcoin from different perspectives, which we should probably do in the autumn. I would try to think about questions and the agenda and the plan for that seminar. Let's say we start at 10 o'clock having something till lunch, and then continue after lunch till 5 o'clock. Send us a question that you didn't dare to ask, or what was that famous movie with the question that you wanted to ask? But well, I'm with you. Yeah, Woody Allen. That's it. That's one. Good. I would like I was thanking many presenters over the last 5 days. I shared about 3 sessions, but I really would like genuinely, strongly to thank our presenters and to invite you to give them a great applause for this great session. Thank you once more to our remote participants as well. Bye.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah.